Welcome to Film Phreeks. This is Justin Llewellyn.
And Eddie Williams.
And tonight we're going to be doing another audio review, and this time of a film that actually piqued my interest for that I've been kind of interested in for quite a while now. And what we're going to be discussing is Hobbs and Shaw, or as it's marketed, Fast and Furious presents Hobbs and Shaw, which is the spin-off of the Fast and the Furious franchise. And this one is directed by David Leitch and stars Dwayne Johnson and Jason Statham, coming back from their roles in the Fast and Furious franchise. And you also bring back Helen Mirren as well. And you got newcomers in this, including Idris Elba and Vanessa Kirby. And in this film, we deal with pretty much you got two sides of the law, or two sides of the story, where you got basically, well, the main story deals with this. You got Idris Elba's character, who's pretty much the mercenary, he's a cyber genetically enhanced terrorist that's working for this organization called Etion, and he's basically trying to spread this virus that's supposed to turn the whole world around and kill everybody in the world.
Yeah, it's basically trying to weed out the weak. He's basically playing Thanos.
Yeah, and it's got a little bit of its plot similarities to Mission Impossible 2 with the whole virus thing. And along the way, there's this girl that's named Hattie, who's Vanessa Kirby's character, who's the sister of Jason Statham's character, Deckard Shaw, where she basically, this is a minor spoiler, she inherits the virus inside of her, and pretty much it's all boils down to Idris Elba's character trying to go after her, while also her having to work with, as you see in the trailers, Luke Hobbs, Dwayne Johnson, and Jason Statham have to work together in order to protect her and try to stop this virus from being spread.
Yep.
And pretty much it boils down to them having to save the world from this virus.
Yeah.
Now here's a little backstory. Now, as we said, this is now the spinoff, the spinoff,
the first ever spinoff for Fast and the Furious.
Which it's hard to believe that going back all the way back to 2001 when the first Fast and the Furious came out. This movie franchise started out as just a simple car racing franchise at first, and
exactly.
It's weird.
It was actually built
so long.
It was built around because race car people racing became sort of a big deal in the early 2000s, and it wanted to make a movie based off that, and it was a realistic film. It was kind of like Training Day type film,
and it was written by David Ayer.
Yep, and as the films go along, we haven't got to a retro, so we'll kind of give you a little, small build up, and then you got the two, which only brought back
Paul Walker,
rest in peace, Paul Walker, who's tragically, not with us anymore, and it brought Tyrese Gibson in it, and it was kind of doing that, and then the third one came out, which pretty much. You thought the franchise was kind of going down more of a straight-to-video route for a while until they revived it with Part 4, Fast and Furious. And ever since 4 is where they decided to take this franchise in a bending laws of physics, should I say.
Well, and
they get worse as they go.
Yeah, well, it's weird because the first two movies, well, the first one in particular, I still highly enjoy as just a regular street racing movie and all that. And I became and I still hold that because even though Paul Walker is the main focus of that film, I still always felt like Vin Diesel's character I found more interesting in the first one.
Yeah, because it was like you said, the first movie was more of a settled story and it was based off of very realistic shit. I mean, it's a good storytelling of and it's like the Van Diesel on that or in that one is where he's kind of like anti-villainish / comes good, but it was a settled story is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
and then, the second one introduced us with the more entertainment value, the more flash. Yeah, the Miami Vice, I call it, of the series.
Yeah, and then when 3 got around, they pretty much wanted to go a different direction, which I respect, but it didn't work too well with them going into Tokyo and all that. And then when 4 came back, 4 was
3 also didn't help. It didn't help that they didn't bring anybody freaking back. hardly,
besides
but
Vin
one
Diesel
can't.
at the very end.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
And
then
then
yeah,
that's when they were kind of worried they were going to do a bring it on type approach where they were going to be on video, but they were smart and just didn't touch it for a while.
yeah, and then when four came out, it showed that they were trying to bring back the original cast and go their own way again. Which four I found kind of disappointing because it was one of those movies that I like it. Keep me wrong, I still like the movie, but it's definitely the weakest with the main cast of it.
Despite its emotional standpoint, it tried to do with the story, it it comes off. It came off as very drawn out, um, too dramatized,
Yeah, but with
and it's just not an interesting villain at that too.
yeah, with five though, it really changed gears because they realized that because four was pretty much doing the same shit, they needed to bring new life with the franchise, and they wanted to basically do something different. And that's when we brought Dwayne Johnson in with the fifth movie because with Fast Five, they were doing a more instead of doing their traditional racing, they were going for more heist missions and stuff with five and
I
six.
kind of like a Need for Speed
Ocean's
underground type of
11,
thing.
pretty
Yeah,
much.
with the mix with the Ocean's 11 with the like more like wanted around the world type feel.
Yeah.
And that's where Dwayne Johnson comes in as kind of like a villainish. He's not a villain, but he's a cop that's after them.
Yeah, and then with the sixth one, it also showed they kept going on with doing more heist missions and stuff, and the series has been pretty much taking different type of approaches that I respect because you're having to do a franchise like that, you're having to really change stuff around.
Yeah,
But
which
when it came
I
to six and
with
seven,
when it gets to 6 and 7, personally, I find them two to be the strongest of the franchise because when you get to 6, it takes a fucking dark approach.
it
Like,
does, and then with
and not
seven,
only that, the first Shaw we get the played by Luke
Evans,
Evans. Yeah, Luke Evans. He would. This is where we thought at first we were at the Thanos of the franchise as far as villains go.
yeah. And when seven came out, it also introduced us to Jason Statham, where at first he was a bad guy like Dwayne Johnson was in the fifth movie, and then when it got to eight, it ended up, they were kind of running a little more less on steam because in that one they started really getting out of control with their stuff.
Yeah.
So
Well,
the
well,
series
you
has
got.
been
It's not only that you got out of control, but 6 and 7 should have been the final one because it showed that Luke Evans, he was the like fucking menacing like villain. Like that movie was so dark and just, I mean, just brutal, and we were losing people left and right. And then when we were introduced with Statham at the end, seeing Statham as a fucking villain, you're like, oh my god, we're gonna. This is like kind of like a different version of the Terminator where you see a action star becoming a fucking villain, and
exactly.
Statham was fucking brutal.
Oh
Like
yeah,
you
dude.
felt this is the end right here. This is the final hit, and especially when we heard Paul Walker sadly died that year during the shooting of 7, and it gave a good closure. And I thought it should have ended right there because they've already fought probably the biggest baddest boss. Then 8 came out, and personally, this one was where I kind of thought it dropped a little bit because not only you don't have Paul Walker, sadly, but the I just don't see Charlize Theron. While she was a good villain, it just felt like the villains from here on out are just not as good as the Shaw brothers.
Yeah,
And not only that,
that.
they turned fucking Jason Statham's character, who was killing women and children in a hospital, into a good guy in this one. And I was just like, I wish they didn't go with that approach.
Yeah, I got you. The
Yeah.
same, that's what I'm saying. But what got me curious, what I did appreciate though with eight though, because I still like eight a lot.
Yeah.
I appreciate the fact that in that one we were finally getting to see Dwayne Johnson and Jason Statham's characters actually team up for the first time, and that's what made me want to get to see them in their own spinoff. So
Yeah,
that
because
idea
I
was
forgot to
already
mention in
developed from
7, they were going at it big time. Like, everybody was going at it. And then
yeah,
that's probably one of the things I liked about 8, even though I don't like the whole twist with Jason going good. But it did bring the funny banter with them back and forth and fighting each other and shit. And so that's what got me hyped for this one, Hobbs and Shaw.
Yeah, because this one I actually really, felt like, okay, we're going to see something really crazy now. Let's just focus on these two. And yeah, already from the trailers, I was already excited to begin with. And
Yep.
after upon seeing the film, this now we get into our review of it. It's fun, but it does show that there's certain things you just kind of want to have to, you kind of go a little too extreme when it comes to
Yeah, I
this.
exactly. I found the film to be okay. I was actually kind of underwhelmed when I walked out because this film had no reason to not be on par with fun, excitement films like, example, Independence Day. It should have been on par of something like that. Because, yes, I was going to this film to not take it so seriously because we're at this point when you got to about Fast 7, 8, 9, all them, they really start, or 8, uh, they're really out there. But this film, like, I felt like took it way too out there compared to the other ones.
Yeah.
I mean, after walking out, you actually feel like the laws of physics in 7 and 8 make more sense than this film. But I get that we're not supposed to take it too seriously. But again, on the entertainment value, it was very hit and miss.
Yeah, exactly. And but I will say though that the movie does have a vibe that it is definitely a movie. I describe it like this. It's a movie that I can watch if you're hanging out with your buddies and you want a good like macho like level on that kind of like while you're drinking beers and shit. This is the kind of movie I can say in that mindset of because it
Well,
does have
yeah,
that.
like I hear people like saying that if you were into movies like Commando or some of those just off the wall 80s, just kick ass, take names type of movie, I'm into those. So I was really wanting to go in this film with that mindset when I heard people comparing to those two. There's no fucking comparison because Commando is a yeah, that's the type of movie I'm into. This film, I felt like underachieved that.
Right, but
The
I
whole
can say with
yeah,
that level, that's the approach that I honestly feel in parts I felt worked on that level.
yeah,
So,
that's the problem with the
but
film. The problem with this film is it's in parts. That's the problem.
yeah, but but to get my pros out of the way, I will say that once again, much like in Fate of the Furious, it's great to see that these two guys, Statham and Johnson, they're not only was their humor so like fucking hilarious in parts for the most part, but I
Yeah,
also like the fact that, this is a movie that really speaks that they have to pretty much work together because one thing I appreciated with the writing standpoint with both their characters is they both have their own like sides of their story that comes into play and ties it and like brings them full circle. That I actually like.
exactly. And I will say, like, it was, even though I didn't like the change of Statham in 8, I was looking forward to, because I love their banter so much, I was looking for entertainment. And I thought for the most part, some of the shit that they, banter back and forth was kind of funny. Especially the part where they're fucking having to change their names because they're wanted because Idris Elba's character has a scene where he actually makes them wanted, throughout the entire world. And they had to get on a plane, and Statham gives him this fucking funny ass name he has to go by, and he didn't read his name until he went up there and they announced his name, and it made
Yeah.
him get a cavity search. So that was fucking hilarious, especially the post credit scene where he got Statham back on the same way with the huge anus name.
Yeah.
I will say that's the humor that they should have went with throughout the whole story. Unfortunately, when we'll get to our cons on that, unfortunately, it doesn't stay on that level all the time.
Yeah. It doesn't stay consistent a
Yeah,
lot.
consistent on that. Yeah.
But I will also say too on some of the other biggest pros I have is the action department in this is exactly what you expect. Testosterone filled in a lot of parts. The action does work, especially the way that you're getting the real because this is keep in mind this is coming from the same director that co-directed the first John Wick, and you can see and he also directed Deadpool too. So you can see
Yes.
the craft that he does with a lot of the fight scenes and stuff, and the way that
Yeah,
they're
the choreographs of the fight scenes are really good. I
yeah
will say that, especially the slow mo punching is
yeah
pretty cool. I also liked Idris Elba as the villain, and it was kind of neat seeing, even though it's bending real out there with the whole. He's actually Superman in this. He can lift up cars and fucking break steel like it ain't nothing. So it's really went out there at this point. But it was
yeah.
cool seeing him as the villain. I just felt like again, there's a con with everything I like. So it's like,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I
And
enjoyed him as a villain, just underused a little bit. But yeah,
yeah, I hear what you're saying, but it's also great that the movie it has kind of a tongue-in-cheek type of quality aspect that I actually thought was the way that the humor presents itself. It plays in a fun way that it's like they're in on the joke basically on how ridiculous a lot of a lot of the shit takes place in these parts, especially with them going
and
after the
personally,
cipher.
when they, oh, like you said, like when it tries to do that tongue in cheek, which kind of surprised me because you didn't expect that from the trailers. It really did try to do that with, especially with the Ryan Reynolds and the other dude. You
Yeah,
know, kind of like it was a different look than what you would see with the Fast and the Furious movies, and um, I just think that maybe they should have got a better writer that knows how to do tongue in cheek fun, because I felt like the person that was doing the tongue in cheek in this, it was like it was very inconsistent because it would go from that to an actual action movie. It was like not blanding, you know.
yeah, I can see that, but
It's very mixy on
yeah.
that.
Well, and the other thing too, I do like some of the new additions they have in this as well. Like I thought the sister character I thought was a good addition. You know, she because it was great that she brought like she's basically like the female version of Statham, but like she's playing her own type and she's basically the glue that holds them two together basically because they're the
Exactly.
ones that they're
Believe it or
after.
not, out of the Shaws, she actually had a good route in her life compared to her whole family.
Yeah, and I
She
like the fact
was
that
actually
they
working for the
actually
government.
yeah, and what I also appreciate too was we actually get into some good like backstory involving both Statham and Johnson's characters in some scenes, which
Exactly.
I
You
thought
know
was
what?
cool.
I will say that another praise I got to give, which actually I'm glad they kind of did this, and it's actually, in a way, it's a hint, not really big time, but a little biography of The Rock. Because if you guys know, The Rock is Samoan
Hmm.
heritage, and he actually is paying homage to his heritage in that scene. Because in the the last quarter of the movie, they have to fight Idris Elba's character and his army, and you saw it in the trailers, in Samoa. And basically they're trying to go with the whole traditional warrior, thing. And I think that had a lot to do with like Rock and his upbringing, where he was able, because that's him speaking that dialect that
Yeah,
he
it
understands.
is. Yeah,
Yeah,
it is.
and it had something to do with, like, I think his mother or something was talking about it and stuff. I don't know, but
Yeah,
I really enjoyed that, and it was a beautiful island.
it was definitely, and that also brings into play like the movie when it gets toward its third act. I will say it kind of got me flashbacks when I was thinking of the movie like I'm not going to compare it because the movie was a lot better, I thought, but I like the way that they played into the whole jungle setting because it reminded me of the Rundown with The Rock.
Yeah, that's the problem with The Rock, which, again, off topic just for a second. I love the dude. I like him in movies, but that goes into my point about how he's being overused so much, because he's also in, the Jumanji movies, and it just feels like he's been in so many jungle settings. Not to mention he's got another jungle movie coming out.
Yeah,
Um, that it seems like he's just getting off of the set to go to the next one, wearing practically almost wearing the same shit.
pretty much, yeah. But I mean, he just always brings a likable presence and so
Yeah,
much
he does. Yes.
so much, whether the movie is good or bad, he at least, sticks to what he does best.
Yeah.
And
He
I
does.
also
Yeah.
got to appreciate the fact that the movie, well, yeah, it pretty much is all my pros because now
Well, I'm also give a pro, even though it's not. There is kind of like a cliffhanger at the end, which I'm actually, despite having some pretty mixed reviews with the film, has got me kind of like intrigued, because apparently the person says that we got a lot of history.
yeah,
So, in order for that to work, they're gonna have to. There's somebody from Fast and the Furious that's doing this shit.
yeah,
So
and
I'm
so
actually kind of curious on that.
I am too, and it does make
Yeah.
me want to see more with this organization that they set up because in a good way, I think that it's kind of reminds me of like the plot point of Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. Not trying to
No,
compare the two,
kind
but it
of
kind of
reminds me
falls
of-
in that that
well,
same predicament.
I'll tell you what it reminds me of with the out of the ordinary, way out there fucking villain that can do like impossible shit, and with this like this corporation that has that little layer out in the snow and stuff. It kind of remind me of James Bond
Yeah, pretty much.
because Idris Elba reminds me of a James Bond villain from like an over the top villain from
I
back in the
know
day.
it. And I think they actually wanted him to play James Bond for a long time.
So he plays kind of like a James Bond villain. So
Pretty much, yeah. So
if you guys remember some of the over the top ones, you had Jaws and all them. That's what it
yeah,
kind of felt like to me.
that's what.
Over the
Yeah,
top. But
so,
yeah. I mean, there ain't much really to say. So here we go with our cons. Uh, where do I begin? Because while I like we said, the film is okay and doable, there's a lot of problems with this, and I know that I shouldn't, trash the whole bending physics, but there was really no balance in this film with the whole bending physics thing, and I just felt like there's a point where you can overdo it so bad to the point it kind of takes you out of the movie, and that's what I kind of felt in this one. With Idris Elba's character, while I loved his villain and all stuff, and him punching through steel and all that stuff, I felt like this was getting into like territories of Avengers.
yeah, it does get it pretty out there with this one, and you know, I can see, I can tell that.
Running side of the falling down a fucking skyscraper.
Yeah,
I like that. I mean, I get what they're trying, but I felt like some scenes like that just really, I don't know. I can't explain it. It just really over the top. Not to mention some pretty bad CGI in some of those scenes.
I was gonna say, yeah, there are some pretty bad ones. I mean, if you've seen the last, probably since the last movie too, apparently, especially with Fast Eight, it seems like they're the CGI they use in this. It's because you have like it's weird because there's parts where the effects can be good, like especially with some of the slow mo shots toward the end and some of the fight scenes. But then you have scenes like the skyscraper where it looks really fucking bad, where you can tell. And there's even one part toward when they get to one of their climaxes in the jungle part, it actually looks like they're in a fucking green screen and they're driving in cars.
Yeah, the part where the whole cars are trying to hold on to the helicopter, and the
Yeah,
helicopter starts doing some outlandish shit. Yeah, that part really, yeah, out
yeah,
there.
pretty
Um,
stuck out. And then
Another issue I have, uh, like they introduced some characters to this film, like, which some of them I liked, like Ryan Reynolds and this other guy who pretty much, this Ryan Reynolds knows, uh, uh, Hobbs, right? Yeah, he
yeah,
knows Hobbs, and the other guy knows Shaw. And they start introducing some people, which I don't know what they're going to do with those characters because they just suddenly don't come back. But they introduced somebody I don't think they should have put in this fucking franchise.
yeah. There, we won't spoil who, but let's just say that when
He
this
plays
person
in a
shows
lot of
up,
movies as a character, one of the
yeah,
characters.
yeah, and let's just say that while it was funny, I did feel like it was still like, okay, I can see why you did that, but it was not necessary for this
It,
franchise.
for one, it's not necessary. For two, while I did enjoy the guy at first for first part of his career, kind of finding him kind of annoying.
Yeah,
Like really bad. Especially it's bad enough when you have that guy play with this other character in so many fucking movies that it just becomes redundant that
yeah,
he has to be in everything this other person is. And
yeah.
I was like, did he really have to be part of this fucking franchise? Like, I would have liked more of that scene being Ryan Reynolds. I could have loved that more than who we got.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing is too is I felt like they introduced. Well, here's one thing. I don't know if they're gonna set this up again or what, but they bring in a character that's related to that's an associate of that of Jason Statham's character, and it felt like this character, while there is a purpose to it, it didn't. It much like with some of the other Fast and the Furious films, they just come and go. Like they meet new people and then they're gone after like their one scene. It's just weird.
Yeah, and here's a question that kind of really there's something that they finally answered. They finally answered after I don't know why they were keeping this person alive after 6. But we actually get the fucking answer that the person is indeed dead.
Yeah,
And I don't know why they were keeping him alive for one, because it made Statham's character more crazier. But then they hinted that he might be alive, but they actually say it in text at the end he's dead. And
yeah,
I'm just like, okay, why is this? Why is like, all right, example, like there's like Jason Statham, and you get to meet some of his family in there. Why the fuck are they ignoring the first brother? Why is that not being brought up? Because they did a lot of backtrack scenes of Jason Statham and his sister, but it's like you two weren't the only siblings. Why are they ignoring the guy from 6?
yeah. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, there's the writing. I felt like they really start digging into more stuff with Deckard Shaw in this franchise that we're getting new clarification on stuff, but they keep bringing more questions that we need more answers with.
They're contradicting. Well, they're contradicting some of this shit too. Like I said, it contradicts, that the brother from part 6 even existed, and then they give us this quick snippet that that he passed or something. It's like, okay, you don't see him in any dream sequences when he's talking about them two growing up together. It's like
Yeah,
he's completely ignored. It's like, oh my god, man, because he was actually a fucking good villain. He's my second favorite villain, aside from Statham.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. But I guess they're saving him, I guess, for the next phase, the Fast and Furious movie or whatever. But
I don't
um,
know. What we might have gotten, it sounded like he's dead after they've left us on a cliffhanger that he was possibly alive for a long time. Because I think they mention it at the end. I don't know.
I don't know.
That goes to another kind of hack. I have a lot of issues with the writing in this film. It does
Yeah,
feel like it's just jumping like your standard 90s like rent type of video. It feels like it jumps on that kind of scale with the whole jumping to different cities, and try in the middle. While we said that we liked the humor, there was some humor that was drawn out, and some of it had a lot to do with the Rock keep calling Statham a hub, like jokes being run to the ground is basically what I'm saying.
yeah, and there's also uh, the thing is as well is you also got the movie felt like it went along way too long too because I get that the other Fast and the Furious movies are meaning to go on that long runtime over 2 hours. This movie,
Yeah.
because well, and this is a problem with the franchise overall. This type of genre, I felt like, at least in this story as well, it really didn't need to go over 2 hours long. There's actually scenes where you could literally trim down and you wouldn't really miss
Because
anything.
it didn't have to, because the fact that unlike the other movies from Fast and the Furious movies, this one takes more of a very standard approach as far as story wise. Like
Yeah,
it's pretty trying to get the virus and this villain's after the virus. It doesn't get any. I don't think it's ever been that simple in any of the films since probably part 4. And I really just like the overall story. Just it gets you out of the mood. Like I don't know, I can't explain it. It's hard to explain, but it's something that I figured would capture me. It just wasn't grabbing me, and yeah,
yeah, yeah. I got you. But we
yeah,
also, but other than that, but overall though, I will say that given for what it is, I'd say this would probably rank my third, maybe. Yeah, it's. I will say this: it's way better than fucking Tokyo Drift, and
oh
it's better than Fast and Furious, which from 2009.
yeah, the fourth
But
one.
it still
Yep.
doesn't come. It still doesn't reach the levels of entertainment value like the other ones did. Because I actually even prefer Fast 8 over this in a lot of
Yeah.
aspects.
I prefer Fast 8 over this, but I also even prefer a little bit. It just depends. like on Too Fast and Too Furious, on the entertainment level, it blows this movie out of the water. However, Idris Elba is a kind of a better villain,
Yeah,
you know. But
exactly.
it's a hit and miss, but it is pretty much probably my third weakest of the franchise.
Yeah,
That being said, I'm gonna give this film pretty much an average Joe in the film freaks meter.
fair enough. I'm gonna give the movie because I had a little bit more like a little bit more like entertainment value in certain other areas. I'm gonna give the movie
Yeah.
just a slightly high average Joe on the film freaks meter.
Okay.
So for those of you who have also seen Hobbs and Shaw and the other Fast and the Furious movies, let us know in the comments below what you thought about them. And if you like what you see here, you can feel free to like and subscribe to our channel and check out some other reviews here and on our website at filmfreaks.com. And we'll be seeing you in our next review. We'll see you later.
Later.